Okay, so we're picking up in chapter 3, taking a look at the requirements that are put upon us. So we've been calculating FICA, we've been withholding it from your checks. Now we need to learn how to deposit it and how to reconcile it. Okay. So just a little background. In order to get set up with the IRS, so you can't just start taking money out of people's paychecks, right, without having permission by the various taxing agencies to do that. So if I'm going to be taking state income tax out of your paychecks, I have to ask the state of Montana if I can do that. And they're going to do a background check and issue me a number and then track it, make sure I do what I say I'm doing, right? So same with the IRS. It's actually, a lot of people get confused about this or didn't know this, but it's actually through the Social Security Administration that you apply for permission to do that. And the way that you do that is with an SS4. So you complete this document called an SS4. It's online. Forever it was a piece of paper. You have to get it notarized and send it in duplicate. Now it's all online. And you fill it out and you submit it and you get something called an EIN. I'm in the first bullet, Employer Identification Number. You'll also see it written as an FEIN, Federal Employer Identification Number. And it's really like our Social Security numbers are to us. It sticks with you forever and it's for everything. Income taxes, sales taxes, payroll taxes. I mean, it's kind of your number that just travels with you throughout your business life. Okay. Now you have to have one of these if you have employees. So, for example, I'm a sole proprietorship, right? I'm not a partnership. I'm not an S corp. My little side gig is just a sole proprietorship. It's not completely true, but for our purposes. And I don't have any employees. Would I have to get an EIN or could I just go on my social? I could just go on my social. I could do my taxes on my social, blah, 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 right? But if I got an employee, even if I was a sole proprietorship, I'd have to do an SS4 and get an EIN, okay? And then any other type of business, partnership, LLC, corporation, S corporation, they all have to have FEINs with or without employees. Okay, so SS4 is pretty important to know. And it's the same number of digits as a social, but it's got one dash in it. So same number of digits as a Social Security number, but just one dash after the first two. That's your FEIN.
Is there a difference between the 8 ones and the 8 zeros?
No,
they just ran out of.
Yeah. You see a lot of 13s. And like from the East Coast, anybody that has like East Coast stuff, I'll see 09s. I mean,
okay.
And I'm sure it's indicative of something, either like when it was applied for or what part of the country it was issued from. But yeah, lots of 80s and 81s. An SS5 is what you apply to get a Social Security card. And this is sort of quaint because now everybody gets, I mean, when you leave the hospital, they give you an application for an SS5 for your baby. But in my day and age, you didn't apply for one until you got your first job. And that was sort of like a rite of passage. Like, it was really cool to get your Social Security card. But now you can't take your child on your tax return as a dependent without a Social Security number. So everybody has one, upon birth, essentially. Okay. So once you have this magic number, with that comes duties and obligations, like I said. And one of the things you have to do is start filing, if you have employees, a quarterly 941. And I think for today I asked you to print 2 941s, just the first 2 pages, right? If you forgot, you can do it online. There's a PDF. I don't know if you're able to save the changes in the PDF, but we'll see. I know it's a fillable form, so it's not like you're cold. I put a link here, to go to the IRS.gov is where you get all your forms, all your instructions, all your tax tables. I mean, people think it's this huge black box, which, I mean, kind of still is to intents and purposes, but, you know, it's Freedom of Information Act, everything's out there for you to see. So how often do you have to file these things? It's right in the title, quarterly. How many months are in a quarter? 3, right? So the first quarter of the year ends on what date? March 31st. That one is due the end of the month following the close of the quarter, or April 30th. So I basically give you a month. The second quarter of the year ends on what date? June 30th. That one's due on July 31st. The third quarter ends on September 30th. That one's due on 10/31, and the last one ends on New Year's, and that one's due on 1/31. You just need to know that, okay? And if that date falls on a weekend or a holiday, then it goes to the next business day.
They give you a whole 30 days to report.
They do, and you know, really from an accounting cycle standpoint, what date are we on right now? The 9th? What's the date today? Yeah? Somewhere in there. Friday's Valentine's Day, I know that. Right, yeah, so today's the 11th. From an accounting cycle standpoint, so February 11th, you're just getting your books from January closed out, right? You're making sure everything reconciles, your bank rec's done, your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, you're getting everything kind of done. And then it gives you a couple more weeks to get all of your, mandatory reporting and everything done. So, yeah, they give you a full 30 days to do it. Okay, if you are really a tiny employer, and this has been a number of years, probably a good 9-10 years ago, there was a massive advocacy effort on behalf of taxpayers so that they didn't have to jump through all these hoops if it wasn't really for any set purpose. So for what I'm saying is if you're a small little employer, do you really need to file quarterly payroll returns when, you work for me 2 afternoons a week for $8 an hour, right? So if you're really small and you take less than $2,500 a year from your employees, you only have to file once a year, and that's called a 944. It's just simplified, right? So, and you don't need to worry about 945s. You're not going to work on those. All right, now this, don't even look at all this. It's too much to ingest all at once. So basically what the IRS does is there's 2 kinds of depositories. And you can imagine if you're a really big employer like the university, and we run a $8 million payroll, the IRS is going to want their money from that pretty darn quick, right? Because the university's withheld a whole bunch of money on an $8 million payroll. But if I'm Open Roads Bicycle and I just cut a payroll for, $6,000, it's not as critical to them, right? So based upon that, the IRS will tell you every November what you are, what type of depositor you are. Each November, the IRS notifies an employer if they're one of 2 things. You're either a monthly depositor or a semi-weekly depositor. If you're monthly, you have till the 15th of the next month to get in your taxes that you withheld. So you guys all work for me. I have a little mom and pop grocer. And you guys all work for me, and I run payroll every Friday. Right now we're in November. I ran payroll last Friday. I'm going to run it this Friday. I'm going to run it on the 21st and the 28th. I take all that money, and when do I have to have it to them by? No, the 15th of the following month, right? Both shares of FICA and FIT. So all the FIT I took from your paychecks, all the FICA I took from your paycheck, my match, right? For all 4 weeks in February, I have to get that to you by March 15th. Okay? Because I'm not that bitter. What's the danger in that if I'm a little mom and pop grocer? I better have a system set up so that when I run payroll for you guys and I withhold your FICA and your FIT, that I take that money and put it in another account and then get my share of FICA in there too, and let that sit there so that when that March 15th comes, I have the money, right? Okay, so that's one issue. Or the IRS says to me, gosh, you aren't a mom and pop grocer, you have a contract with the DOJ to write cybersecurity code, and I pay each one of you guys $200,000 a year to do that. So I've got $1.5 million payroll. So they don't want me sitting on that money. So when I run my payroll, my paychecks, they are ascertaining that I'm semi-weekly, and then I'm down to that second blue bullet. If I run my payroll on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, I've got to get the money to the IRS by next Wednesday. And if I run my payroll on a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, they only give me till the next Friday.
How many employees is that?
It doesn't matter the number of employees, it matters the amount of the payroll. So like my example, you guys could all work for me for $11 an hour. My grocery, I'm going to be monthly. You guys all write code for me for $250,000 each a year. I'm going to be semi-weekly. And they just tell you. I mean, there's nothing you do or don't do about it other than once they tell you what you are, you have to comply, right? Okay, and the way that I remember this is a mnemonic. Do you know what that is? What's a mnemonic? Anyone know? MEUMONIC? No. It's a way to help you remember something that you normally wouldn't remember. And I learned the technique when I was studying for the CPA. They showed you ways to just remember voluminous amounts of data, like, oh my gosh, who would ever remember all this stuff? And the way that I do this is I make a little design that looks like this. And what it says is if I pay Wednesday through Friday, I deposit by Wednesday. See the pattern? And if I don't pay on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, what days do I have to pay on? Saturday through Tuesday. You guys get my mnemonic? Okay, well then just remember it however it suits you. Mnemonic are like making a pattern out of something. So to me, WF, I can remember that. And then this, if I didn't pay these 3 days, I had to pay one of those. I don't care how you remember it, but you need to memorize it. So that when I tell you I cut a paycheck on Friday, February 14th, and I'm semi-weekly, what day do I have to have my deposit in by? You're like, oh, that was a Friday. You have to have it in by February 19th. Right? If I pay on a Friday, the 14th, you've got to have it in by the 19th. Okay. If you get it in on the 20th, you're going to get a penalty. Go ahead. So I understand all the words, but I can't put them together, and this was not helpful on any level. I don't mean you're so transparent. When you don't understand something, your face just goes from normal Cami face to like this huge question mark. There's no mistaking it. So basically what they're saying, so the monthly everybody gets, right? You have to the 15th of the next month because you're small. Semi-weekly is, we basically are going to give you about 3 days to get it into the bank. That there's really 2 dates, hence the semi-weekly. There's 2 days a week that it's due by. It's either due into the bank on a Wednesday or it's due into the bank, or not the bank, the IRS, on a Friday. So if I run my checks on the actual physical day of Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, they're like, you got to have it to me by the next Wednesday. If I physically run my checks on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, they give me to the next Friday.
So it's always either Wednesday or Friday. Okay.
I mean, I can put it in whenever, I can put it in before that Wednesday if I want.
Right.
If I put it in after that Wednesday, I'm gonna get penalized because it's late.
Okay.
It's gonna be a percentage of how much I owed. Okay, understand the rule? Except for there's two exceptions. That's the rule, and everybody's one or the other. Hey, you're monthly or you're semi-weekly, period. But that's not the end of the story, because if you're really big or really small, you have exception rules. If you're really big, like the example of the university, and we run an $8 million payroll, you can do just off of the top of your head, you know that FICA came out of that. I mean, so right there you've got what? About. What's 10% of 8 million? 800,000. So what would about 7% be? $560,000, right? So right off, and that's not even fit, obviously. You're going to owe a shit ton of money, right? So when you're really big like that, if you owe over $100,000 from one payroll, they give you 24 hours. And the two rules above go out the door. It'll also happen with, say, a small company, like I'm just futzing along, I have a little used car lot, and it's me and my kid. And I cut a paycheck, once a month, we're pretty small beans, and so I'm monthly, and then at the end of the year, it's like my dealership's done really, really great, my used car lot's done really, really great, and I cut us some huge bonus checks. Then I've got 24 hours to get it in the bank. It's over 100,000, not of the payroll, but of the what? Of the taxes that I owe. Your withholding plus my share of FICA, okay? Or conversely, I'm really, really tiny, and I don't even owe $2,500 for the whole quarter. So that's like I'm Dairy Queen in the winter. Don't they open pretty quick? I think they open on Friday. Don't they open on Valentine's Day? See, there's another thing I should be looking forward to is my chili dog. Are they already open? I thought Valentine's. Really? I thought it was Valentine's Day was the big deal.
You think the one down on Reserve?
Reserve, Higgins, South.
The one with less taxes?
Yeah, they're all.
Who knew there were that many Dairy Queens in town?
We need the best time for ice cream.
Huh?
For some reason, we're the one that's
Huh.
got
It says downtown.
Yeah, let's look.
I think that one's,
The one on Higgins.
The one on the outside.
yeah, that one's. closed.
Oh my God, how do we solve this dilemma? Okay, so forget Dairy Queen. Let's just Big Dipper. If you're Big Dipper and you don't have much activity, you don't have $2,500 all quarter, then you just wait and you don't have to deposit at all. You have to send it in when you do your 941. So for this quarter, when would I be sending in my money if I was Big Dipper, based on what I just told you? April 30th, good answer. Because the end of the quarter is March 31st, my 941 is due April 30th, and I would just send my money in with it. Okay, now this might be about as exciting as watching paint dry, but I will tell you about the time that you go to work for somebody or you open your own shop and you screw up deposits or reporting deadlines and you get penalties, that will get your attention. So, I mean, it is kind of a big, colossal yawn, but it's also really important to get it right. We use a system called EFTPS. You need to know what that is, Electronic Federal Tax Payment System. That's how we submit our payroll taxes electronically. There's still old timers that use the coupons and checks. See, you don't know, you're smiling. If you're under a threshold and you're grandfathered in, some folks still use that. I mean, for years and years, we've filled out coupons, and then you would go wait in line at the drive-thru at the bank, because there were only 2 federal depositories in Montana, or in Missoula, that could take federal money. And then you wait, and you stamp it, and you go home, and you take copies of it, and you punch 3 holes in it, and you put it in a binder, and you label it, and it's really kind of a lot of work tracking all that. Now you just need to make sure your hard drives don't crash, right? Okay, so you need to use EFTPS in order to deposit. You enroll with Form 9779, again, super exciting, but yeah, you got to fill it out correctly. You've got to do like a dry run to make sure that the IRS computer can talk to the bank's computer and make the financial transaction. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these because we're going to do them. What we're going to be learning how to do is preparing a Form 941. So just hop through that because we're going to do that together. And then this is just to, and I've sort of alluded to this, that there's a ton of different kinds of penalties. Failing to file, failing to pay on time, filing false returns, not giving people their W-2s on time, not giving people their 1099s on time, obviously having a check bounce. I mean, there's tons of different kinds of penalties and interest. You definitely don't want to get into this cycle. Okay, so let's get out our 941s. So you're going to have that sitting in front of you. You're going to have on your screen, or I guess you can just look on my screen. Oh, you have extra ones. That's cool. Okay, so here's the 941. And then, let's see, where am I? No, seriously, where am I? Oh, maybe I need to download this, and then I can go back.
Oh.
Okay, and then go back here. Okay, I just opened the solutions to chapter 3 too. In that first section called announcements and miscellaneous documents, there's a file called payroll registers, practicing journalizing, doing 941s and 940s. And if you click on that, you're going to come to a spreadsheet that's got 2 worksheets. And we're going to be, let's start with Banner Drug. Okay, so what are we looking at here? What are we looking at? Just a payroll register for a week. I've got 4 employees. Here's their regular wages, here's their overtime wages, and that equals their gross pay, right? Then I've got the FICA I withheld, the fit and sit. I take out some union dues, and total deductions and net pay. And we need to take this information and translate it to a 941. First off, what's unrealistic about this is this wouldn't really be how it is because you're not going to have the same overtime every pay schedule, obviously. That we're sitting here in academia, this is as good as I can do to make it realistic. So we're just going to pretend like this payroll looks the same all year long.
I said bi-weekly.
There's 2 tabs at the bottom. I think we're on the, which one is this, Banner? Yeah, Banner Drug. Okay, so With your 941 out in front of you, just using, you don't have an address, but you've got the FEIN, you've got the name of the company, and this is the paychecks for April, May, and June. So fill out which quarter, fill out the name of the company, and fill out the FEIN, and then we'll move on.
What's the difference between a trade
Some people do have something called DBA, doing business as.
and okay.
Okay, so let's find. $84. What's the number?
6112799.
Oops, 6112799. 2799. And what quarter is it for? Second quarter. So when is this due by? July 31st. And then we'd have, obviously, address. Okay. Part 1, answer these questions for the quarter. For the quarter, the payroll register you're looking at is for what? A week. So everything needs to be what? Converted to a quarter. How many months are in a quarter? 3. How many paychecks? 13. 52 weeks in the year divided by 4 quarters. And where am I? I would tell you that. Oh goodness, I've got too many things open here. In April, I had 4 paychecks. May, I had 5 paychecks. In June, I had 4 paychecks. You wouldn't know that without looking at a calendar and knowing my pay schedule. But you would know that every quarter you have 13, because 52 divided by 4 is 13. Okay, so I need you to fill out the first couple lines. The first line asks how many employees I have. The second employee asks what are the gross wages for the quarter. So I think basically I'm just taking 2209 times 13, 28,717. Right? Easy peasy.
Do we have to have this, or these are copies?
No, this is for you. Number three, yeah, this is your tool. Number three, how much federal income tax did I withhold all quarter?
Would it be 6 times 13?
Yep. So this is how much FIT I withheld. Never, ever, ever put state income taxes on a 941, right? That's a whole different return. $2106.
And so obviously on these you do add cents.
Right. So in my other class, we're looking at tax returns in finance. On income tax returns, I mean, you can put cents, but who would bother with them? But on payroll tax returns, as we're going to find out in a second here, it actually, you kind of end up mucking around with it a lot to get it to balance to the penny. So yes, you have to use pennies. Okay, fill out lines 5A and 5C. Carry the math across. Oh, this is going to be a really, really long healing process. And tally it up to line 5E. Is there ever a time when taxable Social Security wages and taxable Medicare wages are different from taxable wages for FIT? You know the answer to this. What happens with the taxable wages for Social Security? They cap, right, at 132.9. So that number might be less. Also, on line 2 for the wages, tips, and other compensations susceptible to federal income tax, if you put money into something like an HSA or a 401k, that drops that number that's taxable for FIT, but it doesn't impact OASBI or HI. So those numbers might not be the same. We're going to do a really easy payroll tax return where no one caps, no one's got an HSA, super straightforward. But that's not 100% realistic either. And then just follow the directions. Add column 2 from lines 5A, 5B, 5C, and 5D. And then carry it down to line 6. And then pencil in here what you actually think, what you could tell somebody in English, the English language, what line 6 represents.
So net means after something usually.
It's your FICA, FIT, right? All your federal payroll taxes for the quarter. So is your share of Social Security and HI in there? Is both shares? Look at the numbers you multiplied by. That's both shares, isn't it? Right? 0.124? Did you guys just do that math without even processing what those numbers were? 0.124 both shares, 0.029 both shares. Combine line 6 through 9. And we're not going to have any of these guys. Oh. And I'm just going and reading instructions. Anything that I don't know what the heck it is, I'm just going to pray that Lisa's going to stay true to her word and keep this a simple payroll tax return. I'm going to just skip over it. Deposits. I've got to tell you the deposit somewhere. So I'm going to go back to the payroll register. And oh, look, right here. Payroll deposit, $6,500. And she's a monthly, or they're a monthly depositor. So it looks like Banner overpaid by how much? 30 cents. Anything that comes down to line 14 or 15 of balance due or overpayment, if it's under $1, just draw a line through it. Nobody's going to be dealing with 30 cents. Okay, now we're on page 2. Don't forget to fill this all in again. I have to tell you that, Cammie, somewhere, and I did. I told you right here. In the real world, I'm going to go to my general ledger, and I'm going to pull my deposits off of it. In the real world, you're going to hit a button, and QuickBooks is going to spit this out. But again, you have to know how to verify whether it's right or not, right? Because ultimately, you're going to sign your name to it. Okay. Then it says, tell us about your deposit schedule and tax liability. If you are unsure whether you are monthly or semi-weekly, see section 11 of Pub 15. But I know because I told you, what are they? Monthly. So go check the appropriate box in part 2. Then what they're going to do is they're going to go check how much you deposited by the 15th of the following month, right? Because you're a monthly depositor. They're going to go check that with what you supposed to do versus what you actually did. So tax liability for month 1. Where am I going to get that? Can I just take the amount and divide by 3? Why not?
Then they've been wanting less paychecks.
Yeah, what does that say? In the first month, they cut payroll 4 times. In the second month, they cut it 5 times. In the third month, they cut it 4 times. Okay? How are you going to figure out how much they owed for one payroll? FICA, FICA, FICA.
Do the total amount divided by payroll? How about it?
I would just go back to the payroll register itself. Can you figure out how much you owe for one payroll? And then multiply it out by the number of payrolls in a month. And plug the numbers in there and add it up, and it tells you right there, this has got to equal line 12. On that very first section, there's a Excel spreadsheet of all payroll registers. And we're on the phone call band. Sure. So the question is, how much do you owe for just one payroll? So 168.99 plus 168.99, right? Plus 162.
And then times either 4 or 5, depending.
Because what you're doing, everything here is just a game of conversion. How many weeks in a quarter? How many paychecks in a month? Uh-oh, what happens if it's off by 4 cents? It says it has to balance to line 12. So what are these numbers? 1999, 92. $24.99.90. So this is where the silly shuffling around of pennies comes from, because it very clearly tells me that it has to equal line 12, and I'm off by 4 cents. If you go back to the first page, where do you think what line would indicate to you a place I could adjust that 4 cents? 7 fractions of cents. You can put minus point or plus 0.04 in there and then change the numbers below it. Let me give you 2 options. That's what the book shows you to do. So what they would do is they would go in and they would do this. And then that would change all these, right? Obviously you can see that to 74 cents here and there, and then it's all happy, right? the way that I do it, and I could care less which way you do it, I'm showing you this is what the book does. Was that 4 cents? What I do is I just go in there and I'm like, okay, I need this to equal 70 cents. So I'm just going to pull 4 cents off of there. Right? It says here you got to equal line 12. So I go up and I'm like, what's line 12? 64.9970. I plug that in and I take the 4 cents off the last month to tie it in. I don't care how you do it. I think it's easier to just go do it there, but if you like to do it on the front page, that's fine. Do you understand the options?
What happens to those little bits and snippets every time?
Some person who can write great computer code. What was that movie where the guy in the base?
Office space.
Oh my God, that was fabulous, right? I mean, I'm not encouraging that kind of activity, but I don't know. It's just, I think it probably rounds one way and rounds the other and kind of ends up on the grand wash of things. The bottom line is the cash that was deposited was the 6,500 and that was off by 30 cents. Okay, do you understand what you're doing? All right, now the way you can show me that you know what you're doing is go to the next payroll register and do another one. And I am going to turn off the recording now because we've got a bunch of blank space as it is.